from a business model point of view with the classic thing, we bring German technology to India. But in the last, I would say, 1.5 years, we kind of not changed the business model, but we extended it in the fact that we say, on the one side, we're still sticking to technology transfer because from the vision point of view that we see the lack in India is here. There's a lack of electricity, there's a lack of pure water, there's a lack of waste management, and there's technology which can solve this problem. And through the business model development we're doing also from a social point of view, because just as a side information, to make a business model work, you always have to think in a social context in your offers. So you can't just put a solar panel in a juggy in an urban slum and just see if it works or not. You have to adjust to the situation. So the vision we have is actually to implement technology there where it's mostly needed, which is vision number one. And this we're doing through the technology transfer. But the other part of the vision, which we just started to develop, I would say in the last 1.5 years, is actually that we in India want to become a discussion partner for the public front. So for the ministries, for the institutions, for the bureaucrats, to understand where they are lacking. Because what happens in India right now is that, especially in these young fields like renewable energy or urban planning, city development, there are bureaucrats writing policies and making decisions. There are technology people or companies who try to make money in that field, and there are citizens who don't have any, opportunity to properly speak up. So the result is a completely overlap of responsibility, mismanagement, miscommunication. People don't interact and find a systemic approach. So what we do right now in India much more, and this is the work I do mostly these days, is actually consulting bureaucrats and speaking to bureaucrats and actually translating the needs, for example, companies have in their market entry to people who write the policy for this market entry. Yeah, and this is kind of, so just to finish, this is kind of the vision we want to go to, that we establish ourselves much more in that field and become a respected, knowledgeable discussion partner for the public ministry in order to find the best solution possible to write policies.
You seem to enjoy speaking to the administration. How do you do that?
It's very, I just go there in general. But the reason why I enjoy it, it's very funny in general. Because if you go to a ministry, for example, in Delhi, you find the second side of India, you find the second phase. So going, for example, to Mumbai and discussing with a bunch of investors how to develop 30 megawatt of solar power plants, that's one side. So, but going to a ministry where people sit behind piles of paper and they don't have a computer, and you discuss with them how they should actually write the policy for these investors who are sitting in Mumbai. That's quite a side, I have to say. So this is kind of, and I enjoy it because this is a more realistic side of India, because this is here since the 50s, it's the iron frame, the bureaucratic work these people doing, and this will not change. So, and you can't change India by just looking at the one side of it. So you have to be able to deal with the other things. And what I do, and I mean, to be very honest, this is a little advantage that I'm a young foreign woman, blonde. People actually don't have a problem. It's easier for me to get access to these people, to actually get a meeting with a bureaucrat and actually sit there and discuss certain issues. Because I don't fall into a certain case, I don't fall into a certain class system, because I'm a foreigner, right? So my approach is very direct. In general, if you go to a bureaucrat in India, so for example, if one of my Indian colleagues would go, it would be a very hierarchy-driven thing, because being a bureaucrat in India means a lot of power. And because I'm from a foreign country and I'm a little bit out of the scope and can approach these people directly. And I enjoy it, I have to say. I mean, it's quite it's good exercise.
Would you ever consider do another country, or if you like India, you're going to stay there? Can you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, say, bridge to China, bridge to Taiwan, who knows, another country, the experience from scratch again?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I love India. I mean, it's my home. Yeah. So my flat is here, my friends is here, my boyfriend is here. So I don't have an exit option right now in terms of going back to Europe, and I don't want to. But what I can think about is, for example, which is kind of a little side idea of mine, that we are thinking about, for example, from a more social point of view, to do the same exercise in a few years to Pakistan. So bridge to Pakistan from the Delhi office, because again, Pakistan is such a troubled country from a political point of view, but also from a resource point of view, right? So there's a lack of water, you need very high efficient rainwater harvesting, and there's so many technology solutions you can implement, but they only make sense if they're financially viable. And that's something, for example, a lot of NGOs, and this is my little NGO critic, sometimes don't understand that it doesn't make sense to install something, for example, a technology, when you can't make sure that it will sustain for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So from my point of view, the solution for this is coming from a business approach and cooperation, for example, with ministries. So the vision of going to Pakistan could be something, but maybe in 5, 6, 7, 10 years.
Which kind of leads me to another question. Who is the technology person? Are you an expert in the technology?
No, I'm an expert in policy development. So I'm a political scientist, as I said, but we have here for each of the renewable energy sections, like solar, wind, biomass, and hydro, we have Indian engineers here, because it doesn't make sense to bring a German solar expert to India because he doesn't understand the Indian market. So our solar experts, for example, they're here, they have a background in business, they have a background in the technology, but we are not the people who construct a solar power plant, I have to say. So we understand the technology from a business point of view, we can rate them, we can understand them, but we are not the people who construct them. So if we need specific information from a technology point of view, which goes really, really in depth, we actually have the people around here to contact, or we have partner companies we're working then, we're actually implementing the projects then. But we are coming from the project design, business development point of view. And therefore it's quite good. And I mean, our team, mostly there are right now, from these 14 people, there are 10 Indians, a few German interns jumping around right now. And because the monsoon started yesterday here in Delhi, they're very excited about this amount of rain. And 2 Indian interns, yeah.
Right. So I wanted to kind of dig a bit deeper into the business model. How, I think that you kind of expressed it in a bit of a general term. How did you start changing it? What specific projects happened or instances happened that you said, hey, this is not working?
Yeah, it's not working because in the beginning we thought it's very easy to just bring technology from A to B because there must be a need for it. But then we found out that actually there are 2 things in India which kill your business model, and from a technology transfer point of view, that's the price, especially with regards to China and the competition from that side. And the second thing is actually return on invest of Indian clients. So an Indian, no investor, no project developer invests, for example, wants to have a return on invest which is longer than 2 years, just because of the fact that the markets are changing so rapidly. So they're in such a dynamic state that you don't know what happens in 3 years. You can't guarantee that in 6 years your solar power plant is still there because maybe there's a city because of the rapid urbanization developments which are happening. So you have to think more short term. And for example, especially in regards to the European markets and maybe especially to Germany, people there are used to plan long-termish, 6-7 years. They have fixed policy frameworks like feed-in tariffs, which actually help them to plan long-term. And to change their mindset from the return on invest point of view, which obviously has a direct impact on the price and the price competition here in India, these are the 2 crucial things in changing the business model. And we experienced this in projects we actually developed from Bridge to India, that the approach we did in the beginning was quite wrong, because we thought people just might buy it because the quality speaks for itself. But no, the quality is not as important as the price and the short-term effect of the technology. And this is a lesson we had to learn, and now we're installing it or actually implementing it, and this is now also how we consult our clients.
What would you say is kind of the main lessons that you would say to companies or people, to some of our listeners who want to do business in India? What is the things that the top 3 things perhaps you think that they should really keep into consideration from your experience?
Okay, the first thing is they have to understand, and I think this is really the main point, that India is price competitive, and that coming from a Western, or let's say a Western market point of view, they always have to understand that China is nearby and that Indian manufacturers are extremely cheap, even though they hold a good quality. So when Indian companies come to India, they have to understand that this price competitiveness decides if they are successful or not. Second thing is, I think they have to understand that India right now is in such a dynamic shape due to population growth, due to policy development, due to GDP growth, that they actually have to be here. So you can't, and that's what I said before, you can't understand the market if you're sitting on a desk somewhere in the middle of the Black Forest in Germany thinking of doing market research. You have to sit here in Delhi, you have to sit in Mumbai, or wherever you want to sit, with a team with local partners. And this actually leads me to the third point. I think people have to understand that in India you can only be successful if you have the networks, which doesn't actually mean that you have to, no corruption. I'm not talking about this kind of networks, but you have to know how to get in touch with people. Because what happens here is kind of the sentence saying that first you have a relationship and then you do business. So first you go to a bird rat and you drink 5 hours tea with them. So you have a chai and another chai, and you talk about the family and the kids and so on, and how the mother is doing and how the dog is doing, and if everything's fine. And then you start slowly develop a level of trust where you then, for example, can base on. And this takes some time. So patience in this entire process of understanding the market is maybe the crucial point, which Indian or companies who are coming to India have to consider.
Are there any resources, books, podcasts, or blogs that could help people understand the Indian mentality? Would you have anything like that for Western people?
Yeah, for example, people I just recently met are the Institute of Competitiveness, which is a side project from the Harvard Business School. And they just analyze more than 200 business models which work in the Indian market. So they're, for example, fantastic for understanding specific dynamics, understanding the competitive frontier in India, because, I mean, India is like exploding in that sense. You have so many entrepreneurial people here in this country and the market which is developing within the country that you have to understand how competitive actually Indian companies are in regards to, for example, international companies. So they are a very good source. They have a fantastic website. They have webinars. They have interviews on their site. So it's the Institute of Competitiveness based in Gurgaon near Delhi. And if you want to understand a little bit more on the policy side, then this is a partner company or partner organization of ours called the Observer Research Foundation. So they are a political think tank focusing on India's foreign policy relations, but they are also doing extensive research in the fields of renewable energy, extensive research in the fields of climate change, and India's position within, which gives a little bit of a larger spectrum. But because the think tank has a background in being part of the Alliance, which is one of the largest companies here in India, from Mukesh Ambani, they actually understand the corporate point of view as well. So whatever they do, they include corporate people as stakeholders, but their target group are, for example, governmental decision makers. They have a lot of cooperations with European countries, for example, with Germany, with the US. So they have fantastic reports on their website that actually understand specific market-specific frameworks, but also with this political development point of view, which is very important here for India. And the third thing I would say is actually just watching, for example, TV shows or TV channels like NDTV online. They have a fantastic stream. So NDTV is the New Delhi television channel. And if you watch this and if you watch Indian news, you kind of understand what the key topics in the country are right now. And if you watch it these days, the only thing you will find is things about corruption, a crazy yoga guru who is fasting against corruption, another guy who was fasting against corruption, and scandals all over. So, but these are the main topics which are discussed right now in the country. And in order to understand what happens in India and to get the let's say the social spirit, which is in the discussion right now, people are talking in the metro about this, or people reading in the newspaper. It's actually quite good to watch. So
I think that this is very fascinating, because we have a lot of technology companies and other companies trying to figure out how to kind of expand in that market.
I mean, people I know, to be honest, many people here would try to get outsourced to India. Let's say, hey, I'm going to get 2 developers in India, and usually they come back with horror stories because they're not able to get anything done. Rather, they say, well, I spent 2 months with that guy or those guys in India, and I didn't get any, or they just, one day they didn't show up anymore. So I thought they quit, and then they come back like 3 weeks later, and they say, "Hey, boss, how are you? I'm back." And so these are things, I guess, what people don't understand. And the fact that you need to be there, this is what I get from that. Do you think the outsourcing model can work actually, or would you have tip or tricks? How could you manage that if you're not there? Or
yeah, well,